And welcome into the Monday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. Hope everybody had a fantastic holiday weekend. We're back at it here on the program today. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Rexrode, good morning. How was your 4th of July weekend?
Pretty good. You know, the best part was an incredible comeback from my Detroit Tigers yesterday to complete a sweep over the Cleveland Guardians and Cleveland and establish continued best record in Major League Baseball.
Are you there? You fully believing that this team is this is it? This is a World Series winner this year?
Well, I don't know. It's been 41 years. There's been one in my lifetime. So, but it's getting to the point where my brother and I are texting daily during games. So that's pretty serious in like early July. So, I mean, look, I'm a fair weather fan. I don't know how many, a lot of people are. I don't judge fair weather fans because frankly, when the Tigers were cheeks for a long time, I barely paid attention and I kind of even faded away from baseball in general. And now that they're good, I'm obsessed again. So sorry, that's just how it goes. But I got a feeling that this team is special and has a chance.
57-34, the record for those Detroit Tigers right now. 57-34. It's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good.
With a lot of really good.
Pretty good.
That's fitting because I watched a bunch of like old Curb episodes this weekend, which is for no reason. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a young team with one of the best farm systems too. So like, it's kind of exciting, man. It's kind of exciting.
It's coming up roses for you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Ian Safar, how we doing? How was your 4th of July weekend?
Oh, doing great. Thanks. It was good. It was a nice, relaxing Friday. Hung out at the in-laws on the Cumberland.
Sweet.
It was fun. And it was nice to wake up on Saturday and be like, oh, it's Saturday, not Sunday.
Yes.
So it was a good 3-day weekend. Hope everybody was safe and had a good time.
Yeah, for sure. That did get confusing.
Yeah.
The Friday, July 4th, I woke up Saturday and I was like, guess I'm going to be late for church. It's like 8:30.
Saturday felt like Sunday for sure.
Good stuff there. I will say only, I was looking around my neighborhood on, I guess that would have been Thursday night. And I was like, nobody's shooting anything. Like there's no fireworks going off. Nothing's going on. Like about 6:30 on July 4th, still nobody was doing anything. And then at about 8:45 collectively on July 4th, my entire neighborhood shot off fireworks. I mean, all at the same time. It was going on all around me. And I was like, okay. So they actually did purchase fireworks this year. They just held on to them until Friday night.
Yeah.
But it's been well behaved in my neighborhood for the most part. Friday night, they went nuts. And other than that, it's been pretty tame.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't bad last night. A few went off, and I was like, okay. I mean, I was like, seriously, I'm gonna drive around, see who's doing this. But they stopped, so it wasn't too bad. Just went a little, you're still like, okay, so we're around 11 o'clock. I understand it's Saturday, but we're around 11 o'clock. There are kids and dogs all through this neighborhood, and you need to fire these off this late, dude? Really? At this time? You don't, again, just the kids, little kids.
Yeah.
That's a little bit annoying, but it's been worse.
I will say, they behaved. I mean, Friday night, it was about 12:45 in the morning. They were still going. I was like, wow, we're really got a deep supply this year, baby. Good stuff.
Yeah. But it's like I also remember being young and not even thinking about stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And not giving a crap.
Yeah.
So I guess you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, I guess not. We got a lot to get into on the program today. Corey Curtis will be with us at 8 o'clock for his weekly visit. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Our very own Nick Fraser will be coming by at 8:30. We'll get into Nashville SC with him, who wins again over the weekend, and they're unbeaten in 14 straight. So Nashville SC playing very, very well. We will get into that with Nick Fraser a little bit later in the program. Take your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. Joe, we are 2-ish weeks away from training camp. I believe training camp officially opens 2 weeks from tomorrow. The 22nd is when they're coming in. I think they're on the field the first day, the 23rd. This is what AI told me.
Which is kind of early.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is good.
Hey, let's get it going a little quicker. That's fine. Yeah. So now that we're just a couple weeks out away from training camp, what are your most pressing questions on the Tennessee Titans? And for the sake of this discussion for you, for our listeners, I am eliminating, hey, how good's Cam Ward going to be? I'm eliminating that from this point of the discussion because obviously when you talk about discussions with this football team right now, that's basically where it starts and ends is with Cam Ward and how good he's going to be. So that's a given. We know that. Beyond that, what are your biggest questions, your most pressing Titans questions, things you're interested to see as camp opens here in a couple weeks?
And just to be clear, camp things.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Well, look, we've already talked last week about Snead, L'Jarius Snead. So I do think that's one of the obvious big questions from a lot of different angles. His participation, the situation with the civil suit and potential criminal charges, his health, all that stuff. L'Jarius Snead is an obvious one. I think in camp you can be fooled, but the edge players against the offensive tackles, is just one of my big questions. We can think something can look one way or the other in camp, and then you start the real football and it can be different. But we got some pretty decent indicators in recent camps of concerns, especially at left tackle, that, it's, again, at the time, it's like, ooh, Arden Key. But, maybe that was it was more about the guy trying to block him. So I think that it's probably usually like there's some wins and losses and just offense and defense in general. It goes back and forth. But I think you're still going to have some idea. You're going to also have some joint practices. You're going to obviously, we'll see with preseason games how much Brian Callahan thinks it's important to have those guys out there playing real football.
Yep.
I think some will probably see that. So, I just think that's because, one, this team, the most obvious weakness is edge rusher, I think. And the most obvious needed improvement and potential improvement is offensive line play and pass protection. So I think both sides of that. And then to me, I think, just the receiver room is also going to be something we talk about a ton. If Bryce Oliver is indeed a lock with special teams as the reason, that means somebody that has been talked about a lot is not going to be on this team. Could be Xavier Restrepo, could be one of these veteran other guys that they have. I mean, that's going to be, and then of course, as much as we assume like the fourth rounders are going to be on the team, they will be, right? Barring something dramatic, but like, do they actually look like they're going to help? Do they look like difference makers at all? Those are the things that come to mind for me first.
Yeah. Offensively, as far as training camp is concerned, that's probably where I start, beyond Cam Ward would be, does anybody out there outside of Ridley and hopefully Lockett make plays on a consistent enough basis where you're like, okay, well, it looks like they may be able to help you out there. Now, Lockett's going to be inside. PK's talked about that they kind of view him as a slot guy right now, which he's not really been that in his career. They've moved him around in Seattle, but he's played a lot on the outside. So I'm interested to see what that looks like inside on what I would assume would be more of a full-time basis. But do we get a week into camp, a couple weeks into camp, and you're feeling pretty good about an I.O. Manor making plays out there? Or does DK go down the field a few times and make some big plays? Or is it just kind of totally absent of that throughout the first couple of weeks of camp, and you're looking around and you're saying, well, I guess it's Calvin Ridley, sometimes Tyler Lockett, and then a bunch of dudes out there? Because not that you have to have that entirely figured out by the time training camp's over and week one rolls around, but it would be nice to head into week one against Denver and be thinking to yourself that you've got some receivers out there beyond Ridley and Lockett that give you a chance. And again, Lockett, what is Lockett going to be at this stage of his career? I think we know. Like last year, he had 49 catches for 600 yards. I've said it multiple times. If he gives you that again this year, I would sign up for that right now if I'm the Tennessee Titans. I don't know that he's going to give you that. He'll be 33 in September. So we'll see what that looks like. But is there anybody, as camp goes on, that really separates themselves as that third guy at receiver that can come in and make plays for you?
Yeah, you want. I mean, you just want some buzz around somebody. Again, sometimes buzz in camp doesn't mean much. Traylon Burks, prime example. But you want one of these guys to consistently, make plays in camp, whatever the setting is. Look, it's easy in the one-on-ones. The receiver has a huge advantage.
Correct.
But again, like Kyle Phillips is another guy. Like one-on-ones, dude's was an all pro in the NFL, like, because he did have quick feet and there was a reason he was on this team. But you have to be able to, take the beating in a game and not drop punts in a game, et cetera, et cetera. So, but 7-on-7 team stuff. I mean, you want to hear about some of these guys. Wow. Once again, Ian Manor makes another big play downfield, things like that. I also think obviously the situation just specifically at center is a big deal here.
Yep. Who's playing?
And how are they addressing that? Inside linebacker is interesting too, for this team. Who's emerging there? Is James Williams a legit guy who can play on defense this year? Is Cedric Gray going to matter? Things like that. So there's a lot.
There is a lot with this team. We'll take your thoughts on it. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We're a couple weeks out from Titans training camp. Beyond Cam Ward, what are your most pressing questions on the Titans heading into camp? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Couple weeks out from camp. Your biggest camp questions for the Titans beyond the obvious of Cam Ward. I got a lot of different thoughts on that front. Thoughts on the YouTube chat saying you can't expect rookie wide receivers not drafted in the first round to be productive. If they're good, but the odds are that they won't be. Got another person on YouTube says, I just want no injuries in camp. Give me an injury-free training camp out there. Yeah, I hear what you're saying on the rookie wide receiver part of this. Like, at the end of the day, you have to remember that Io Manor and DK specifically are fourth-round guys. So it's not like they've drafted Jamar Chase here, and you're expecting that type of production immediately. But frankly, Joe, with where they're at with their roster, they really need one of those guys, at least, to be ready to play and contribute immediately. And maybe that is, at the end of the day, going to be asking too much from one of those two guys. You know, the point is well taken that, you know, rookie wide receivers, sometimes it's a crapshoot. Sometimes some guys are ready to go, and they're ready to be productive immediately. Sometimes they're not, and it takes them a while. Sometimes, you know, when you're drafting somebody in the fourth round, they never get there. I mean, think of Des Fitzpatrick, who was drafted in the fourth round by the Tennessee Titans. So I understand if you're a Titans fan out there and you're looking at your receiving core right now and you're saying, man, they're relying way too much on one of these fourth rounders to come in or be good, or maybe even beyond that, forget the fourth rounder. They're relying too much, in some people's opinion, on the undrafted free agent to come in and to be a part of the receiving core here. But they really need one of those guys, and I don't really care who it is. They need one of those guys to step in and be productive. And if I had to pick one of who I think has the best chance, I think Io Manor's probably the guy based on his physical profile.
Yeah, I would agree. I will point out too. I mean, look, I don't disagree. I mean, we're not talking about high impact as a hope. You're just talking about, you know, did you find people who can play in this league and help out some? You're going to need high impact from Ridley. You're going to need some for the tight end position too, by the way. But I will just point out that round 4 has included names such as Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, Steve Largent. Amon-Ra St. Brown, was he a 4th or 5th rounder?
He's fourth. Yeah,
he was
fourth.
a 4th rounder too. Later than that, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin. Thank you, AI, on whatever this AI thing is on Google.
Nice.
Very handy. Yeah, that's not predicting that anything like that for these guys, but you can find.
I think D-Base was a 4th rounder too, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
That's right. Or was he 5th?
He's 4th.
4th or 5th.
Yeah, he's 4th.
There you go. So, you know, and obviously in second, third rounds, there's a lot of examples too of receivers. And look, today, we've discussed this a lot, but in today's game, receivers come out of college football less facing a huge learning curve in the NFL than they did previously in previous eras where there was such a big difference. You know, there's a lot of concepts that do translate now for receivers. So, you know, I think that you should, in the 4th round, it's not unreasonable to think that you're going to get somebody who helps you.
Here's one thing that's, I think, a little underrated heading into camp that I'm really interested to see if it ends up being a big strength for the Titans this year. You know, we've talked a lot about corner, and obviously L'Jarius Sneed is going to be really important there. I'm looking at safety, and I'm looking at Hooker, Xavier Woods coming in, and you just spent a significant pick on Kevin Winston Jr. Now, we'll see exactly how healthy Kevin Winston Jr. is. But if he can come in and he can be an impactful player for you immediately, albeit in a role that, I mean, I guess he's not going to be starting. You've got Hooker and you've got Woods back there, but depending on which package you want to throw out there, how impactful can a guy like Winston be quickly? If he's a good player and he's what some people think he can be when he's healthy, then safety has a chance to go from what I thought at times last year was a pretty big weakness for that team to maybe a potential strength of the defense. Maybe, you know, maybe in some ways the strength of the defense when you really look at it.
That would help a lot. But I would also say that what you want the strength of the defense to obviously be is what, again, I thought would be more of a big deal last year and still I think could be a big deal, which is Simmons and Sweat inside. I mean, that's one of those things that, other than like Tavondre Sweat's physical condition, which is always going to be a talking point, even though, of course, he'll never discuss his weight and things like that. But, like, other than things like that, you're just not going to – again, you're not going to – that's a real – when real football starts kind of thing to assess. But
honestly, in camp, I'm not totally the same, but I'm almost the same way on the offensive line. Like, the offensive line, they're going to have days where they've got pads on. They're going to have days where they got the shells on, and you can glean some things from that. But I think the bottom line, we're going to begin to really find out about the offensive line when week 1 rolls around in Denver, right? And maybe that's an unfair test because that's statistically the best defense in the NFL last year. But I mean, you're gonna find out, get a pretty good litmus test of where they're at quickly. I think with the offensive line specifically, and maybe even with the edge rusher group, it's going to be really difficult to know where they're at in training camp, just based on the lack of physicality that's in there. I'm not saying you can't take anything away from it, because I do think, those fully padded days and even, the one-on-one stuff and shells and all that, like you can take some things from that as it relates to the offensive line and the defensive line. But those are really the positions as well where it's just hard to get a great read on that in camp.
Yep. The big boy aspects of football, just there's limitations on that. And, in this league, it does seem like across the league, I feel like most fan bases are complaining about offensive line play, especially like in the first month of the season. They do so little actual football, which I understand. I wouldn't do it differently either. I'm sure there's a lot of offensive line coaches like, God, can we have 1 week of actual football? Back in the day, we used to actually play. Yeah, well, that is a really interesting question for this group. When you talk about, again, the schedule is front loaded. There's a more opportunity at the end of the schedule. What's the state of your team and your season by the time you get there? It seems so important to do everything you can for the rookie QB right away, be as good as you can be right away. And as much as I think it can be overrated. I mean, obviously, I think the whole preseason playing thing can be overrated. Those 5 guys up there, there is a lot of timing and chemistry and things like that you probably can't work on all of it effectively until you're just dealing with a defense. Even if it's a defense that's not game planned against you, it's a defense that's doing different things that you have to adjust to on the fly after the snap.
Adam in Portland on the text line says, our linebackers are cheeks. If I was a defense, why would I not? I guess he means offense. If I was an offense, why would I not run it outside every play? This is the biggest thing to me. We aren't setting edges, and I think we're going to give up a lot on the ground. This is from Adam in Portland.
Well, they definitely have addressed the not setting the edge thing. What have they addressed edge to the point of having enough pass rush? I have my questions about that, but I think for sure that they've added size, physicality there to at least try to address that. Because I agree. I mean, last year there's so many bad things about this team. You can just, it's hard to pick just one.
Nobody runs the ball.
It's hard to pick your favorite. Yeah, that's right. And that was a thing that's like, boy, has that just gone away? Where now they were just getting way too often just picked apart on the ground.
I mean, that Washington game last year, I don't remember how many yards specifically that they ended up rushing for in that game. I'm going to go find it right now. But I just remember thinking, good gracious, when's the last time we saw a Titans team just get absolutely obliterated in the run game the way that this one is right now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think of the Packers game too. And I know obviously,
quarterback's part of that one.
Quarterback run game with Malik Willis was a big part of that, but also you knew that was coming. Now
Washington ran for 267 yards on the Titans.
I mean, that's just embarrassing.
3 touchdowns.
That's embarrassing if you're a prominent college football team, to ever give up that much. An NFL team giving up that much on the ground. I'd love to know if there's ever been an NFL team that gave up that much in one game on the ground and made the playoffs.
Yeah. That's a good question.
I mean, there may well be, but I bet you there aren't many. That one stat in one game, I bet you if you had that number across the board, you would be talking absolute cheeks teams almost every time.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about 5.9 a carry for Washington in that game, 45 carries for 267 yards. I mean, that sounds like, Alabama playing against Mercer.
They
or
gave
something
up
like
94 yards to Chris Rodriguez.
that. Yeah. 13 carries, 94 yards. Chris Rodriguez.
Kept him under 100.
7.2 a carry average for C-Rod there.
I mean,
No C note for you, C-Rod.
Nice. I mean, Jeremy McNichols had 32 in that game, 6 carries for 32 yards.
My goodness.
So let's try not to do that again.
I always like McNichols.
Yeah, I like it too, and I could say his name properly, which did not do one time on the show, which people still remind me of. Said McNipples, not McNichols.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Like, well,
do we have that drop? How come we don't have any of your drops?
I make mistakes all the time.
I'll have to search for that
We
one.
could pair that.
I don't know. That was really early in the show.
But we could pair that with all my nipple talk. You know what I mean?
We could
have a little collage.
We could. One texter says, do you think Callahan should keep the starting offensive line on the field as much as possible in the preseason just to get them used to each other? Like, we talked about that a little. I understand that thought. I really do. Here's what I'd really like to see from the offensive line. And whether it comes in the form of preseason games or not, be out there for mostly every practice and be healthy together. Like, I understand that Zeitler wasn't out there on the field for most of the offseason part of that. That's fine. Like, I understand Kevin Zeitler, if you're Brian Callahan, you're looking at it and you're like, I don't know that guy really needs to be out there in OTAs and minicamp, right? Training camp, I'd like to see all those guys out there. And again, you hit on something earlier that's still probably not getting talked about enough. What about center? Like, how healthy is Cushenberry going to be? Is he going to be ready to go in any point in training camp? If he's not ready to go in training camp, who's playing center? What's that going to look like? Like, all of those things together, what I'd really like to see is those guys be healthy, because part of, not all of, but part of the story last year, NPF was coming back from injury and he wasn't ready to go early in training camp. And I'm not saying if he was ready to go from the jump in training camp that he would have been a whole lot better, because frankly, he just sucks. But I need the offensive line to be healthy, available, and out there in training camp, regardless if they're playing, 4 series, 6 series, whatever it is in preseason games. Get out there on the field and practice together every day and be ready to go by week 1.
Yeah, that would help. You don't want Zeitler to be like the offense's version of Snead, or it's like,
Exactly.
we'll just see it during the season. I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't think so either. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your questions to get to on the Titans front. We will do that coming up next. Plus, when the move was made originally, it was something that Titans fans, I think, were really excited about. And I wonder if that's still the case heading into this year. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Mellow Mushroom. There's no pizza like Mellow Mushroom pizza. Stone-baked with fresh ingredients, next-level imagination, and limitless options for customization. It's a higher order of pizza. You know you love Mellow Mushroom. Now get half off a $30 gift card while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Gift card is good for downtown Broadway and in Franklin locations as well. So check that out. Mellow Mushroom, Nashville, best deal of the week here on 102.5. The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Jared from Spring Hill throwing it out there says, nobody on this team has earned the right not to play in the preseason. Would be good for the culture to see it and for Brian Callahan's point system as well. I question Callahan the most in all of this. You know, Joe, every year we get into the preseason conversation. It happens all the time. And look, I understand it to some degree, especially if you watched how bad they've been the last few years. And it's like, well, maybe they do need all the help they can get. They need all the time together that they can get. I am interested on the Cam Ward front to see how they handle that. Like, do they feel like Cam Ward, from a rep standpoint, needs significant work in a preseason game? We have seen over the last couple of years teams handle that a little bit differently. I think Jay Daniels had like 3 series in the preseason last year, so he didn't get a whole lot. Some other teams have handled that differently, and they've played their quarterbacks a little bit more the last couple of years. As a team, I'm interested to see how Callahan handles that this year. But, you know, the one thing I say every year on this, I think everybody loves the idea of their players playing more in the preseason until one of them gets hurt. And then you look around and you say, well, what are you doing? Why are you playing them this much in a meaningless game? And hopefully that doesn't happen, but that's always something I'm scared to death of if I'm a coach.
Yeah. Like Jared saying nobody in this team has earned the right not to play in the preseason. That's what it's about, though, right? It's not about, well, you're good. You know, it's just, look, if Vrabel were coaching this team still, I can tell you right now, Cam Ward might have like one series of handing off, and like that just Vrabel was purely
get him out of there.
I'm not getting dudes hurt in this crap.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I do feel like, especially last year, there were a few teams that surprised me a little bit with, I mean, even like Mahomes, right? He had a few series.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, it's one of those things. It is like, yes, obviously, especially with the QB, they can actually be tackled to the ground. It's real football, so you have that extra risk, but also, you know, you're gonna have injuries all through camp too, and the joint practices that you do with another team, there's team periods, there always are, there's fights, right? And so stuff like that happens, and people still do it despite the risk. I mean, you have to be comfortable with some level of risk to try to get yourself prepared for the season. It just feels like in the league for a few years there, it got to the point where almost everybody was, I don't think they were colluding, but it was just sort of this league-wide thing of like, yeah, we're not playing these guys anymore, which of course took so much value out of the NFL preseason. If you're my age, you remember watching NFL preseason games and seeing the whole team play in the first half, like a lot of them. And you're like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually a game I want to watch. I barely watch them anymore.
Well, even early days of the Titans, right? Like you would go to the preseason game, and a lot of people, that's where they would go. They would go to the preseason game because they either couldn't afford to go in the regular season, but they knew that you were going to see the guys play. Like I remember I went to a few preseason games where like McNair played all the way through the first series of the second half. And that doesn't really ever happen anymore. I'm sure, you know, there will be a couple teams that do that this year, but that just doesn't happen very often anymore. You asked about the rushing yard stat. Trevor on the text line says, you asked if a team gave up 250 plus rushing yards on a defense that still made the playoffs. It did happen. And last year at that, in week 4, the almighty Buffalo Bills gave up a staggering 271 yards on the ground. Wow. I don't know what game that was. I think it was Baltimore, if memory serves me correctly.
That would make sense. That'd be the one team that could get a team like that, right?
I'm going to go double check and make sure that that's the case. But
Trevor.
I seem to remember Baltimore just running all over Buffalo at one point last year.
Yeah, that's a heck of a find. I still would. That's one of those things. Like if you could do a search on that, and you probably can with some service, I bet you it'd be. It would not be a ton.
It was Baltimore. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's almost like Baltimore would be the one team I almost put an asterisk next to it. You know what I mean? Just because between Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry last year.
Derrick Henry had 24 carries for 199.
I
And
think
then
that
Lamar
was
had 54.
My God, the Buffalo Bills hate trying to tackle Derrick Henry.
I also think that was
forever and ever. Amen.
I think Derrick broke a massive one. In that game.
87.
87. Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. 34 carries, 271 yards for the Ravens last year.
There you go. By the way, real quick on the point of the preseason games, I remember being in the Pontiac Silverdome, 1989. It was like, and Rodney Peete was, it must have been because he was a rookie and he wasn't going to start, but Rodney Peete quarterbacked the second half, and it was like they were coming back against Cleveland. It was like the whole, Barry Sanders hadn't signed yet. He was in the press box watching. He was a rookie, but it was like this huge deal. Like, oh man, line, like it mattered that they even won the game, or at least it felt like it as a fan, you know? And key guys were on the field still late in the game. It's so different than it is.
Boy,
now.
how different it is now.
Again, we're getting to the point where it's like, I mean, they're still going to have them, but once they go to 18, which is inevitable, then I think you go with 2. You have 1 home, 1 road,
Which I'm fine with.
and suck it up.
Yeah. Like
That still will be too much.
If you go to 18, give me the 2 preseason games. That's fine. So Joe, I remember, Brian Callahan was hired last year, and yes, there was excitement about him. Obviously, you're talking about the head coach there and him coming in and working with Will Levis and the offense and all that. But when he announced that Denard Wilson was going to be his defensive coordinator, I remember having conversations about it on the show. I remember having Titans fans call in and talk about it in terms of the aggressiveness of Denard Wilson, the different ways that he can scheme up, whether it's blitzes, fronts, whatever it is, to get pressure on the quarterback. And there was a lot of excitement about Denard Wilson. Denard Wilson was highly thought of around the league. He was a guy that had a lot of success. You looked at his coaching background and some of the places that he had been and some of the people that he had worked with, and you thought, man, like this guy could end up being a star. Now you look at year 1 with the Titans, and we've talked about the coaching staff. You got a rookie head coach, a rookie defensive coordinator, and a rookie offensive coordinator all in their first year of doing those respective jobs. And it did not go well for the Titans. If you look statistically at the Titans defense last year, and I'm sure we'll get reminded of this at some point, like that, they didn't give up a whole lot of yards. Like they were, what were they, second in the league in yards surrendered last year? So if you want to go by like the traditional defensive stats that way, pretty good year for the defense last year. If you want to go by the eye test and points allowed, which again, as we've talked about before, is really what matters with the defense. How many points are you giving up? It was not a great year for the Titans defense last year. So my question is, if you're a Titans fan, how are you feeling about, number one, Denard Wilson and his ability to do the job heading into year 2 as defensive coordinator? And number two, the tools at his disposal to help him do the job on the defensive side of the ball in year 2?
That's a good question. Right now, the early going, this is an example. Maybe it'll end up being an example of, yes, everybody wants to be a coordinator and take that to be a head coach, but all coordinator jobs are not good. And I'm not trying to take blame off Denard Wilson, but I don't know how good he is because he just had a terrible team last year. Yes, it's probably overrated going into last year. Part of the overly optimistic vibe around the team was definitely his press conferences. I mean, he's awesome in those. And I absolutely think that he has like the personality to be a head coach in the NFL, and he may well get there, but this may set him back, coming to Nashville and taking this job, but but if he can get this defense to passable this year, because those stats are, as we all know, those stats are so much about the turnovers and the special teams that put that defense in short fields more than other defenses. I mean, they were a bad here and there. They had some good performances, and I think you could argue that here and there they overachieved based on their talent level, but then plenty of other times they didn't. They achieved at or below their awful talent level. Big year for him to just get this defense to like passable, average, okay, decent. And I think if he does that, he will have helped himself a lot, and people will look at him differently. I just, anybody who looks at last year and says, "Oh, that was a bad hire," I'm definitely gonna pause on that one and be in wait and see mode. I mean, what he did coming into this place with the Eagles and Ravens. You go back to this guy was a quality QC guy for years under Jeff Fisher, who obviously is a very good defensive coach. He has the resume and I think the preparation to be in this job. It's just bad first year.
615-737-1025, our phone number. What's your confidence level in Denard Wilson going into year 2 as Titans defensive coordinator? And there's a couple things on that front I want to hit on coming up next as well. We'll do that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Titans at 615-737-1025. Your confidence level in Denard Wilson as defensive coordinator as he's heading in to year 2. One thing that's interesting on that to me, Joe, is we talked when he was hired about like the different ways to get after the quarterback and how that may be coming from different areas, be that blitzing, be that different packages, different looks, all these things. I'm looking at the sack total last year from the Titans. Number one, it's a depressing thing to look at. It's not very many there. There are 11 total Titans a year ago that registered at least half a sack. So Jack Gibbons had half a sack last year.
Congrats.
So he is the 11th and final Titan that registered a sack last year. I'm looking at like Roger McCreary had 1. Jerome Baker had 1. Ollie Gay had 1. James Lynch as a defensive lineman had 1. Tavondre Sweat had 1. A lot of people with 1. And I'm wondering this year, based on where they're at with their roster, can they find more ways to generate pressure on the quarterback from different spots? Like, can you find a way to blitz Roger McCreary more effectively this year? Can you find a way to generate pressure from different spots more often this year? Because frankly, Joe, it's not a great way to operate as a defensive coordinator. You'd rather just be able to line up and rush forward and get after the quarterback that way. I don't know if that's within the scope of realism for this Titans defense this year. And if they can't do that, you're going to have to find some way somehow to generate pressure on the quarterback. So I guess, that's number one. It's a really hard job for Denard Wilson to be able to pull that off this year. But I am wondering, can they be more effective getting after the quarterback in different ways this year than they were a year ago?
Yeah, that's a job of the DC, right? To scheme up pressure. And like you said, the best DCs are often the ones who don't have to.
Yeah.
So, the luxury of 4-man rush getting home enough for you and affecting the quarterback, it's amazing how much smarter defensive coordinators who have that will look. But yeah, I think he's gonna have to figure out ways and be creative and come from different places. And like that was part of the conversation around him coming in, like, again, regardless of necessity, just that this is an aggressive style and and things like that. So yeah, it's hard to imagine that they're going to be able to do enough without some of that.
And Kenneth Murray had 3.5 sacks last year. He's gone, but that spot, could you get more? Can you get similar production or more production out of that spot getting after the quarterback?
Yeah. Yeah. Like if a guy like James Williams, again, I might be a little optimistic to think that he's going to be out there a lot on defense. I don't know, but he does seem like athletically a guy who, if he is and can do everything reasonably well, is a guy who might be able to give you some of that.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. It feels like there's a real limitation on Denard Wilson heading into this year. It does. Like, unless there are 1 or 2 guys that emerge getting after the passer that on paper just doesn't look like it's likely right now, it looks like he's going to be in a really tough spot in year 2 as DC. And I know that if Snead is healthy and available, you're feeling pretty good about the secondary. Like I went over the safeties earlier. I can see where the Titans get pretty good safety play this year. Hopefully they do. We'll see if that materializes. If Snead is healthy, then they may be pretty good in the secondary. So obviously that helps. But I still look at the ability to get after the passer. And unless basically Femi Oladejo comes in and is just way better as a rookie than I think most people expect him to be, I don't know what the path is there for this team having a good defense. Like you have to be able to affect the quarterback in today's NFL. And I know people are going to say Simmons and Sweat, and that's fine. Hopefully Simmons and Sweat are better at getting after the quarterback and finishing the deal on the quarterback this year. But you're talking about guys last year that combined for 6 sacks. Simmons had 5, Sweat had 1. And how much does the position that they play lend itself towards actually sacking the quarterback? Like it's just, sacks aren't everything. We've talked about that. They are something. Like you need to be able to finish the deal on the quarterback. And beyond that, how often are you actually affecting the quarterback? And I still look at this defense and wonder where exactly that's coming from.
Yeah. But if you stop the run, like you said, if you have Snead and you're better in the back end, and even if those guys don't have big sack numbers, I do think that, and then if they are problematic or demand both of them playing to the point where you have to make a tough choice and you'd rather you feel like you need to double both of them, well, that's how your edge players look better than they are. And that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to find ways to make the edge players look better than they are. Ideally, with stuff like that, those things working out for the defense than having to blitz all the time. And then Oladejo, yeah, look, you could make the case for him after Cam Ward as the most important rookie because he's in such an empty spot for this team, and they so badly need help. Arden Keel makes some plays. He's okay. He's not a bad guy to have in your rotation, but right now he's the lead guy, and that's just not good. I mean, it's like that position for the Titans relative to the NFL. Again, unless Oladejo is one of the surprises in the league this year, that position for the Titans is kind of like center is for the Preds relative to the rest of that league.
It's funny you bring that up because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I don't think you have to go that far down the list with the Titans when you're asking about most important players this year in terms of just purely 2025 and how their season's going to play out. I don't think you have to go down that far before you get to Femi Oladejo based on the position that he plays and just how much of a glaring hole that is in their roster right now. You know, I was thinking about it from a Preds perspective. I don't think you have to go that far down the list with the Predators this year before you get to Svechkov and think about how important that guy is. Like, if he's really good, well, that changes what they are down the middle. If he's not, then it's hard to see them being very good this year. Oladejo, it's funny because, I mean, he's a second-round pick, and not a low second. He's a pretty high second-round pick for the Titans. And I think a lot of people are looking at him and saying, well, we just don't expect all that much out of him, out of the rookie year. And I understand why, and I'm kind of the same way. Like, he just started playing this position, and it feels like more of kind of like a project pick and a developmental pick than it does an instant impact pick, which is not typically what we're talking about with a second-round pick. So maybe he's able to figure it out really quickly. There's just the vibe I get from Titans fans in the aftermath of that pick is there's not a whole lot of expectation for him to come in and be like a 9-sack guy immediately, which for a typical second-round pick at that spot is probably what we'd be talking about, Joe, of how many sacks, how good can this guy be immediately?
Yeah. And look, if it turns out that there's so much more for him and he's just scratching the surface and in years to come, he really becomes a difference maker after like a rough rookie year, then, you know, this team is in the position where that pick makes sense if that's the case.
Yeah.
But I still also think like whatever he's got, he's going to have opportunity to show it this year. He has to. And that would be one of the pleasant surprises. For one thing, again, like you can't make final judgments on a draft class in the first year, but he's one of those guys that's going to give you a glimpse of this new GM too, or this new personnel structure, because it was a little bit unconventional, and you could have gone with people who are more proven in college football.
This team, there's been more than two, but there have been two glaring examples in the history of the Titans franchise about players that really didn't do a whole lot in their first stop, and then they came here and were just unbelievable. You think about Delaney Walker on offense, right? Like, he was in San Francisco, and he was Vernon Davis's backup there, and he really didn't do a whole lot in San Francisco. And then he came here, and he was by far their best offensive weapon for a significant period of time. On defense, like Kyle Vanden Bosch in Arizona didn't do hardly anything. Like, he played 4 years in Arizona. One of them he missed an entire season with a torn ACL. He had 4 total sacks in 4 years.
That's wild.
In Arizona. And his first year with the Titans, he had 12 and a half sacks. He came here and the light bulb just immediately clicked.
Yeah.
I don't know who it would be. You know, obviously they went out and they brought in Draymond Jones from the Seahawks. I don't know if it's him, if it's a draft pick from last year that just all of a sudden blossoms. Maybe it is Oladejo. They need somebody to come out of nowhere in a desperate way and be maybe not a 12 and a half sack guy, but they need somebody to really have a level of production that they've just not had to this point in their career. And I don't know if that's realistic or not, but they need one of those guys right now.
Yeah. Oladejo to be the Javon Curse as a rookie. How about that? No one had him coming in here and setting the world on fire.
I think you'd take that.
Yeah.
Hey, he's got some physical tools to him.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why he went in the second round.
Yeah, he does, and obviously he's got a presence on the field that people took note of in the spring. So he's going to be, really important. They've tried to address that with young guys, late in the draft and UDFAs and things like that, and none of those guys have really panned out. and you're kind of left with, just a ton of opportunity for them.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans, plus an interesting conversation that Ian Safar brought up the other day that we're going to get into coming next as it relates to the NFL and the fifth-year option. That's coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. We'll have Corey Curtis from News 2 for his weekly visit coming up at 8 o'clock. Nick Frazier from right here at 102.5 The Game at 8:30. We'll get into Nashville SC and their 14-game unbeaten streak with him a little bit later in the show as well. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. So we were talking the other day, and Ian brought up an interesting topic idea that I'd really not thought too much about, and it relates to the fifth-year option and the NFL. So, Ian, just kind of set up where you're going with this, and then we'll kind of pick it up from there. But I thought a really fascinating discussion around the league and how teams view the fifth-year option.
Yeah, this is the time of year where you kind of just think of some big picture NFL topics, big picture Titans stuff. It's off season. You just kind of go over some of the big storylines. And one thing that kind of came to mind listening, we listen to all types of stuff, podcasts, other stations, XM, all the things, all the shows. Something that just kind of came to mind is the fifth-year option when it comes to contracts and whether NFL teams are overvaluing the fifth-year option in the draft, just in general, as like a strategic point. We hear a lot of, this team wants to move up into the first round, get the fifth-year option, make sure they have that extra year of flexibility when it comes to the contracts for the rookies. And it just can't, based on the numbers and all that kind of stuff, what you have to give up. We've even talked earlier this year, the offseason, about the study when it comes to the draft and trading up, the loser's curse, as they call it, and how you value picks. It's just something that came to mind, whether teams are overvaluing the fifth-year option when it comes to the draft. That was like my main point, I think.
Yeah, I had never really thought about it that way. And Joe, when you look at it here locally, like with the Titans part of it, they haven't really had the chance to value the fifth-year option that much, just because they've had some horrible draft selections, right? Like, think about their first-round picks in recent years. We'll see on Latham. Skoronski, I think, has got a chance to get a fifth-year option. We'll see. But before that, you're going Burks, Farley, Wilson. Wilson didn't even make it through his first year. Jeffrey Simmons, which was a hit. Rashaan Evans, Adoree Jackson, Corey Davis. Like, that's your recent run of first-round picks right there. So, first off, the fifth-year option has not even really come up all that much for the Titans over the last decade. Like, I mean, you're talking about Jack Conklin, and you had a decision to make there. Marcus, in 2015, went into his fifth year. They picked up his option.
Picked up that option, which was expensive.
But you were trying to find out, the kind of that last run there of if he's your guy or if he's not. But they've been dry on the fifth-year option part of this here locally. So hopefully Latham, you get to that point. Hopefully Cam Ward, you get to that point as well. But in general, as you look at the fifth-year option, do you think teams put too much stock into that when it relates to what they're doing in the draft?
Yeah, at times, because you have more flexibility if you don't have that. You can always just sign the player going into their fourth year into the multi-year deal. This topic came up. It's funny because a year ago we were talking some about this with Will Levis. It's like, the second round pick, and they're not going to have that fifth year. But it's like, well, if he's as good as everyone thinks he might be, they'll just go ahead and sign him to. Yeah, I mean, it's good to have another year if you're in that Mariota kind of phase where you're like, oh gosh, not sure yet. That turned out to be a handy fifth-year option. And they did find out. They moved on from him. Again, you could argue, I'm sure you would, and others, that they should have already been out on him. But I think it made sense based on all the information at the time. The Conklin thing, I think, was a mistake. Yep. They declined. Now, they still did make an offer to him, because what happened was he tore his ACL the year before in 2018 at the end of the year he tore his ACL at the end of the 17 season in the playoff game at New England, and then he only played 9 games in 18. So going into 19, they declined it, and he ended up playing all year that year and was really good.
Yeah,
and they were really good.
Yeah.
and they were mashing people. And it was like, if they would have just picked up the option, then they would have had him in 2020. And, who knows? I mean, like 2020 team, of course, was an incredible offensive team, and they were fine there, but then they also lost Lawan, so there's an example of a tough decision that I think that John Robinson made wrong. There's one of his few decisions we haven't criticized yet. So there's another one. But yeah, I mean, I think
you're welcome, John.
I think it probably is. I think it probably is overvalued by NFL teams,
especially in the second half. The numbers for the second half of the round, are the percentages of that player gets picked up their 5th-year option is pretty low. And overthecap.com did some stories from May 2024 of just like the general trends. The first half, the first 15 picks is in the 75-ish range, so that you're pretty safe there, which makes sense. But when teams, move into the first round, in particularly 26 through 32, only about 25% of the players get,
that's
picked
wild.
up the 5th-year option. It's 55% in the, 20 to 25 range. Last year in particular, 16 to 20 picks, 0% picked up. 21 to 25, 40% picked up. And 26 to 32, 4 of 6 got picked up, so 66%. So around, once you get to the back half of the round, it's even less of a chance. So especially if you're trying to trade a value to move up a pick just for the 5th-year option, if you like the player, cool, but don't let that influence you too much.
I mean, in a perfect world, like when you're drafting these players, you know by like year 3 that the 5th-year option, you're not really interested in that because you just want to sign him to a long-term deal, right? Like let's extend this guy and bring him in here. Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, I think the Vikings technically picked up Justin Jefferson's 5th-year option, but then they worked on the contract extension after that. But like those type guys, like that's what you want, right? Like Justin Jefferson was drafted, 21st or 22nd, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you knew by the first game that, oh yeah, you're going to probably extend this guy a long time. So that's what the Titans need a little bit more of guys that come in that you draft in the first round that are just absolute hits that immediately. And they hadn't had very many of those at all.
Yeah. Yeah, the 5th year is a lot of times it's like it's good to have when you're kind of iffy. When you like them, but are you ready to give that big deal? Vancy's on the YouTube chat says Skoronski isn't making it to the 5th year unless he's an all-pro, and if he is, they're going to extend him anyway. Yeah, I don't know, though, but that's the thing. I would disagree with you. I would say that if he keeps progressing, like he has a pretty good year this year, next year is when they would make the decision.
Yeah.
On the option. So, I mean, I could see a scenario where if it's good but not great this year, that they say, sign up for and go with 5 years. And again, maybe then he's great in year 4, and then you can work on the actual second deal.
Yeah. Right now, I think he's trending towards having a 5th-year option picked up. Like, I would describe Skoronski, and this is, I think we've talked about this before. I don't think at this point I'd be stunned if you ever look at Skoronski and you say, yeah, that was worth taking a guard at number 11 overall, because he's turned into be this all-pro player, and perennially you look at him as one of the best guards in the league. Like I don't think he's going to be that. I don't think that's where he's headed. But I do think still that he's got a chance to be a good player. Like I thought toward the end of last year, he started to figure it out a little bit more. One of the things I'm wondering is if they fix everything around him, how much better does he look? I think he's got a chance to be a good starting guard. And at this point, if you're the Titans, wouldn't you probably take that? Like I would take a good starting guard out of that pick.
Absolutely. Yeah. At this point, it's like you said, it's not going to live up to the pick, but plenty of picks don't live up to where they were picked. Some are complete busts and complete losses, and he has a chance to not be. I don't know if I'd agree that he's trending toward. I mean, I think this year tells that story. I mean, I would say there was a step forward last year, a small one, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd agree with that. I think that this year will set the course for that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just thought he got last year. I remember the first month we were looking at him and saying this could be a disaster. Like he could be an absolute disaster out there. And as the year went on, and some of the numbers back this up too, when you dig into his analytics last year, like he got better. He got better. And I think by the end of the year, he was solid over there, especially given what else was around him. He was solid over there. Now, you want better than that. And hopefully, with improved offensive line play around him this year, he is better than that. I look at him and really the pass protection part of it's what I worry about, right? Like I think we've seen examples of him, and even last year, him and Latham together just pancaking people in the running game out there, which is fine. But pass protection, what does that look like from him this year? It's going to be a big thing.
No
Next
question.
to Dan Moore, who is also a big question.
Yes. Evanges also says, would you pay an average starting guard top of the market money? I would just try and draft another. Well, first of all, like just the top of the market money goes to the average starting guard who goes to free agency.
Right.
Every extension, every second deal isn't necessarily top of the market money.
Well, if you go with the 5th-year option, if you just pay him the 1 year, that would be pretty expensive.
It would.
And not use that to sign a longer term contract.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the long term deal, like they're not all market setting deals,
right?
And I would think that he wouldn't.
I would think not,
but we'll see.
I mean, to answer the question, I don't know that I would be all that interested in giving him a market setting deal based on what we've seen to this point. Right. We'll see how that improves, if it improves moving forward.
And to your point, man, that may be the strategy. I mean, that's exactly what the Titans did with Conklin. They said, we'll just drive another right tackle. We know how that's gone.
It's gone well so
far.
There's
There's an example. There's the cautionary tale of doing that, but I understand the idea.
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I saw an interesting list yesterday that, number one, Vols fans will look back on and just be like, oh, God. But I thought it was hilarious. We'll get into some of that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. 102.5 The Game is teamed up with Pella Windows and the Nashville Humane Association for a puppy pet adoption this Saturday at Pella, 277 Mallory Station Road in Cool Springs from 10 to noon. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. We will be joined by Corey Curtis coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode at 7:45, all that ahead. So, Joe, I was reading, we're right around the corner from one of my favorite times of the year, which is the beginning of college football season. I love college football, despite how much the suits and the TV executives and the talking heads really make it difficult at times. The actual sport itself, it's hard to beat. I love it so much. I'll always love it no matter how much they try to screw with it. So, it's reached that time of year for me. Like, I'm listening to all these podcasts and training camp, fall camp for college football is right around the corner. And I was doing some reading yesterday, and I stumbled across this thing from CBS Sports that John Talty put together. And it's basically, the headline is this: from Chad Morris to Charlie Strong, college football's top 25 worst coaching hires this century. And I thought to myself, well, I can think of a couple from Tennessee that have to be on this list somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So I just wondered where. I know a lot of Tennessee fans would make the argument for 3 coaches to be on this list. I did not anticipate that Butch Jones would be on here, simply because there was moderate levels of success with Butch Jones. He had a couple of good years here.
Yeah.
Okay. So
sure.
I did not expect Butch Jones to be on here, and Butch Jones is not on here. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, Derek Dooley's got to be on here, and Jeremy Pruitt's got to be on here. Where are they? Turns out they're both in the top 10, Joe.
Boom.
At number 10, Derek Dooley, who was 15-21 as Tennessee's head coach. And, if you lived through the Dooley era, if you're a Tennessee fan, it was something. And I think the way that Talty described it here is perfect. Dooley had the pedigree, but not the resume when Tennessee hired him after the Lane Kiffin fiasco. So he's at number 10. And then coming in at number 7, our good pal, Jeremy Pruitt.
I can assure you that the gap is closing.
The gap is closing. Number 7 on the top 25 worst coaching hires this century in college football, which means, by the way, there are 6 hires that are worse, including the people tied for first on this list are Mike Price at Alabama, who never coached a game.
Rolling, baby.
And Michael Haywood at Pittsburgh, who also never coached a game. So, I understand that logic. If you hire a coach and they actually ever end up coaching a game for you because of off-the-field trouble, that's got to rank pretty highly on the list. But Pruitt and Dooley, both in the top 10 of worst coaching hires this century for Tennessee.
Yeah, so take heart that Alabama's still number 1.
Alabama is number 1.
Problem is what that eventually led to. But,
by the way, Kansas has 2 coaches in the top 10 as well.
That's the only – I was just going to say Tennessee has 2 and Kansas's are great. It's like the formerly successful coaches who were successful because they're at places where you selected your own players, but you really weren't that good of a coach. That would be Les Miles and Charlie Weiss.
Yeah.
They hired both of those dudes and just absolutely cratered both times. So that's a different kind of bad hire than Tennessee. Also with this,
God, I forgot about Willie Taggart at Florida State.
Yeah, that one did not go well. Chad Morris at Arkansas, nice number 4 there. Okay, so I'm trying to. I honestly, Ellis Johnson at Southern Miss. Okay, the worst turnaround. Okay, so he went 0-12, but that's an interesting one. That would be. I honestly don't even really know that story, but as I read about it, it sounds pretty bad.
It does.
With the Pruitt write up, he says allegedly handing out money to players in fast food bags. Wasn't that debunked, or is that actually reality? And then there was
I know the McDonald's bag was debunked,
but then Mike Wilson, one of his stories during that time, I know there was something with Chick-fil-A.
Like Chick-fil-A, yeah.
But was it actually like food money handed out in bags? Is that
I choose to believe it was.
It's just going to be urban legend that we're just going to go with as sure.
I choose to believe it was.
Yeah, we'll just go with that. That's fine.
Well, I bring this up because I know Tennessee fans, look, they made the college football playoff last year, and this is year 5 of Heupel coming up. But I just want I just want to throw a nice little reminder out there of where the program was and what they've kind of sorted through over the last 25 years and where it is now. Again, I don't know how good this, and we're gonna get into this next week when SEC media days are going around. I don't know how good this Tennessee team is going to be. Like, it's difficult for me to believe right now that they're going to be in the college football playoff, just based on what quarterback looks like, and they got a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball at receiver and offensive line, all these things. So there's a chance that they're not all that good this year. Like, maybe 7-5, 8-4, somewhere in that neighborhood. Which, when that happens, there will be a segment of Tennessee fans that just lose their mind over that. But again, I would just like to remind people of kind of where they were and how Josh Heupel's kind of turned this around a little bit here. Just think back, not that long ago.
No, it's absolutely it's worth keeping in mind. This is a good reminder of that for sure. I'd be interested in the top 25 best. Does Josh Heupel end up on the top 25 best?
Well,
of this century, I think he probably would. Obviously, there's a lot of good contenders there, but I would guess right now, without going through it at all, that he probably would.
it'd be close. I mean, there have been a lot of good hires this year. I mean, we know what the number one hire over the last 25 years would be. It would be Nick Saban in Alabama. So, Kirby Smart at Georgia's got to be up there. There's a lot of really good hires that have been made. So would he be in the top 25? I don't know. Like, it'd probably be close.
Like what's an interesting one there is like James Franklin, I think, would definitely be on the top 25 as a Vanderbilt hire.
Yeah.
Would he also be as a Penn State hire? I mean, he's done pretty well. He never wins the huge game or closes the deal, but that's like a really interesting one.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Like, I mean, there's some really bad hires. I totally forgot about Chad Morris at Arkansas. Like the whole Brian Harsin fiasco at Auburn and what that looked like. Charlie Strong at Texas, which I remember when Texas hired Charlie Strong, they were like, "This is it. They're back. Texas is back."
Well, Vancy points out Tom Herman, which I was actually surprised to not see on this list, because that would be a good contender.
Well, I'll throw you another one. I mean, when you look at Scott Frost and like his
and Mike Riley at Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. Like Nebraska has got some candidates for this list.
This list also has two failed hires at Purdue, which is fine, but also sometimes like a list like this, it's like the Kansas ones, because they were washed, and it was you're especially white. I mean, Les Miles you can make a case for when they did it. Charlie Weiss at that point, like, how did you not realize what everyone else realized about Charlie Weiss at that point? It's truly amazing. But Purdue, like, sometimes it's a little bit of like, it's also like some places are really tough, and like coach will look bad and the hire will look bad because of where they go. So there's Kansas, also that.
I mean, you throw Kansas in there too, but I'm with you. Like with
those particular hires,
it's pretty bad. So I just saw that yesterday, and I was like, well. And we're going to get into a lot of college football next week, as I said, but this is going to be a really interesting, I think, case study for Tennessee fans this year, because as I said, when all the Nico stuff went down, I mean, Josh Heupel could have run for governor in this state, because people were like, oh yes, that's our guy. He stood up to the quarterback. Go Heupel. And I mean, he was getting universally praised by Tennessee fans and getting praised all around college football. And I said the day we did our show after that thing, I said, that's great. What's it going to look like in the fall when they're 8-4? And look, maybe they surprise it. Maybe they get good quarterback play this year, and Mike Matthews is an absolute stud, and they end up going 10-2 or 11-1 and are right back in the college football playoff. That's not impossible with this team, because frankly, I think their defense is still going to be pretty stout. But you look at their schedule, you look at their win total odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, and you look at the questions at quarterback, I do think 7-5, 8-4 is within the realm of possibility. And if it goes down that way, I'm interested to see how the Tennessee fan base reacts to it.
Yeah, it won't be great. But again, that's where things are. That's a good reminder of Heupel, which is 8-4. Oh, God.
Exactly.
How disappointing.
Yeah.
Right.
Which for a while
worth keeping in mind
was the ceiling for a large portion of this century. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, a potential answer for a problem for the Predators that I would be monitoring very closely if I were Barry Trotz. We'll get into that. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. The Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming to the Nashville Super Speedway Labor Day weekend, and 102.5 The Game has your chance to win VIP tickets to the IndyCar race. Text in the keyword RACE to 615-737-1025. That's RACE to 615-737-1025 to be entered to win a pair of VIP tickets. For more information on the event, visit musiccitygp.com. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into Nashville SC with Nick Frazier at 8:30. So all that coming up here on the show. Joe, we kind of got through the meat and potatoes of the Predators discussion last week and what they've done in free agency, the Brady Martin pick, all those things. And now it's into the part of the offseason where the first wave of free agency is over, and you might see some minor moves that are made from here on out from strictly a free agency point. But really the question now is what could come via trade. And Chris Johnston of Sportsnet has thrown it out there that it could be maybe a little bit more active this offseason in the trade market because people don't feel like they've really addressed a lot of needs in free agency because the class wasn't very good. Problem with that is there's a lot of teams out there trying to make these trades and trying to get better, and we'll see what ends up materializing there on that front. From the Predators' standpoint, we all know they need help at center. And how can you add to that? Is there anybody out there that can be a realistic target to bring in? And there's some interesting discussions going on right now in Anaheim. And it kind of feels like, Joe, we've looked at Anaheim a lot over the last couple of years, and it's mostly been about Zegras. Well, they brought in Granlund. Zegras is out. They've got, a really interesting setup with their forwards in Anaheim, and Joel Quenneville is coming in. Mason McTavish is 22 years old, and he is about to be a free agent, a restricted free agent. And I heard Elliot Friedman talking on the 32 Thoughts podcast about him and about their goalie, Lucas Dostal, and how Pat Verbeek, who is the general manager in Anaheim, may want to wait before giving out a long-term deal here with those two guys to kind of see how it shakes out and what that looks like and see where that number kind of falls. And there's a lot of thought specifically on McTavish right now. And again, it's the offseason. I think some of this you take with a grain of salt. But like Jeff Merrick threw it out there, friend of the show, about maybe the idea, could McTavish and Dostal be candidates for an offer sheet this offseason? And if so, would you structure it to where Anaheim would really have to think twice about matching it? And the other part of that, and David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period threw this out there. And again, we've talked about Pagnotta before. Like, I think he's got some good stuff. I think he is connected. I think it's not always reliable.
Sometimes a little bit out of left field,
and sometimes it doesn't end up materializing that way. So keep that for what it's worth. But he threw it out there this weekend that I think the word he used was intrigue around Mason McTavish, and maybe some buzz suggesting that McTavish may not be happy about a reduction in his role, and that could lead to some discussions with him and the Ducks of trying to maybe move him out of there. So again, that's a lot of conjecture, a lot of stuff that it really has no facts to it at all at this point. We'll see what it goes. But I do look at McTavish. He's 22, and I don't know that he is ever going to be like a number one center, but he's already played in the league 4 years as a 22-year-old. Last year on a team, again, that was not very good. He put up 52 points in 76 games, 22 goals, 30 assists. You look at kind of the physical profile of him. He's 6'1", 220. He's a good-sized kid. Again, I don't know that he's ever going to end up being an 80-point player or anything like that. But frankly, with where their roster is right now, if I'm the Predators, I'd rather have two pretty good number two centermen and not a number one centerman than just to have one pretty good number two centerman and then nowhere close to anything after that. So, again, center is the hardest thing to find in the NHL right now. Everybody's looking for them. There's a shortage of them available. I have no clue. I think Anaheim would be stupid to let this material destabilize to the point where they lose him. But something to keep an eye on if things go sideways with McTavish and his discussions with Anaheim. Something to keep an eye on if you're Barry Trotz.
Yeah, I think I think it's a good idea, and an offer sheet would be a good idea, like you said. And you look at him, like you said, he had 52 last year. He had 42 points in 64 games the year before that. As a rookie, he had 43 points in 80 games. I just muted myself to talk and then unmuted myself to cough. Good stuff. There we go. I'm in on it. I'm in on it. I think it's a good idea. And like you said, if he's seeing himself get bumped down there, I mean, if you're again a Steven Stamkos and you're like, oh, I could have McTavish in here centering this line.
It's a lot different.
Please, yes. Now, please.
Well, and that does a couple things. I mean, he's 22. He's a former third overall pick. He was drafted not that long ago in 2021. He was third overall pick. So, look, maybe he does have the potential one day to become a number one centerman. We'll see. Like, he's had a good start to his career. Again, on a team in Anaheim that hasn't been very good. They've had a lot of young forward talent around him, but they've not been all that good of a team. So, I'm interested to see how that goes. Again, I think Anaheim would be dumb to let this deteriorate to the point where he wants out. And I don't really have the expectation that that's going to happen. But again, we talked about heading into the offseason, Joe, of if you're Barry Trotz and you're wanting to change this next year, you got to keep your eye on situations around the league that have the chance to snowball a little bit. And look, it's happened before. It's, we bring up the Matthew Tkachuk situation. It was a different one than this. Like Matthew Tkachuk basically told Calgary, hey, I ain't signing here. So you better get rid of me and get something for me while you can. And they did. This is not that, but you are talking about a 22-year-old and a structure in Anaheim where they've got a lot of forwards that are really good. And I'm interested to see how that part of it plays out. And again, Friedman put it out there that Verbeek, I think the word he said that he would be shocked if they end up coming to a long-term deal this offseason with McTavish. So does that make him mad? Does that make him mad to the point where he wants out? You got to monitor all these things if you're Barry Trotz.
Yeah, I guess my question would also be, with Zegras out, how are they feeling about their depth? Wouldn't he still be a pretty important guy to keep around? That's separate from obviously how he feels about the situation, but I would wonder about that a little bit, even with what they've been doing with the roster.
Well, they brought in, so Anaheim is going to be interesting. I mean, they've got Leo Carlson, who they took high in the draft here in Nashville. They got Granlund coming in. They got Kreider coming in from the Rangers, who, Kreider's old at this point, but they've got Troy Terry, they've got Frank Vetrano, like they got Ryan Strunk, like they're good at forward. I still think McTavish is probably pretty clearly their number 2 centerman, depending on where they want to play Granlund. If they want to play Granlund down the middle, or if they want to play him on the wing. But it's just one of those things to monitor here because they got a lot of forwards, a lot of really good young forwards. They're a little bit light on defense. So do they want to try to make that change at some point? Again, if he becomes available, there is going to be heavy interest in him around the league. So if you're the Predators, whether it's via offer sheet or via trade, could you put together a package that Anaheim would be interested in? The offer sheet part of this, we got people talking about the offer sheet on the text line right now of just do it, sign him to an offer sheet. Like, I think you got to be real careful with the offer sheet from the standpoint of, like, are you just negotiating Anaheim's contract for him?
Yeah,
because, what's the level you would have to go to for Anaheim just to not match it, where they're like, I don't want to do that? And if they don't want to do that, does that make any sense for you to do?
Right,
if you're the Predators?
What is that number? Yeah, you don't want to overstep. So look, but we've been talking about what is the move, what is the trade, who is the person? Well, this is the best idea I've heard of yet.
I saw just there's nothing concrete to it that he's absolutely moving. So I want to make that clear. There's just a lot of speculation right now that's out there about wondering what that situation is going to look like and how he's going to end it. I mean, the way that the fourth period kind of phrased it is interesting. Like, does he look at the moves that the Ducks have made and says, like, what am I going to beat? Are you trying to move me to third line? I don't want to do that. Like, does that end up being a problem at some point? Because other than him just becoming really incensed about the situation that he's in, it doesn't make any sense for Anaheim to move on from him. Like, you're a 3rd overall pick. He's been very productive for you early in his career. He's 22. Again, I think they'd be stupid to let him get away from him. But I've seen crazier things happen in the NHL.
They are the Anaheim Ducks, after all.
They are.
Hard times. They've fallen on some hard times. They're not the Sharks, but they've had a run here. So maybe this is a mistake waiting to happen.
And now Corey Perry is playing for the Kings, which may just send all of them into just absolute panic over there. It's like, wow,
Corey
Perry's he's back home, except not really. When he said that in his press conference, I was like, back home, huh? I'm sure that'll go over well with Ducks fans.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I'd love to hear that.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Well, every day I look in the mirror, I don't think I'm getting any younger.
So it's a nice mix of mushy toilet paper.
Said McNipples, not McNichols.
Oh my God, I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Joe, do you have pointy nipples that show through the polo?
We had a love fest. We all kind of gathered around. We hugged each other.
Yeah, I don't want my nipples to get raw.
I'm petrified of nipple chafing. Once it starts, it is a vicious circle.
I don't know that I have especially pointy nipples,
For me, that's a very fulfilling moment, borderline erotic.
but sometimes I definitely notice my nipples. And I'm going to egg your house. And I'm going to egg your house.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. That one made Joe laugh a lot. How we doing, Joe? Floor's yours.
I've said the word nipple too many times. Clearly, should be a banned word. Yeah, it's like this. What are the 7 dirty words? Or George Carlin?
Yeah.
One of mine.
Add an eighth.
Nipple should just be, at least for me. Like other people can say nipple, but I have to not say nipple anymore, as I just said nipple like 10
Like
times.
5 times, yes.
Whoo! I must really be obsessed with nipples. I forgot what I was going to rant
I'm
about.
sure that won't be a drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. I was going to rant about Oasis. Someone texted me, or not texted me, someone on the YouTube chat asked if I was going to, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, we need a breakdown. They got back on stage.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find this. So this is really good radio. As I go, oh yeah, JH just wanted to hear my take on the reunion. First of all, I'm excited that Oasis is reunited. I like Oasis. I would love to see Oasis live. I mean, I like a lot of their songs. They're and those those Gallagher brothers, boy, they're wild and crazy, man. I'd be really interested to see if they can like not get in a fist fight like within a week or two of this tour. But the tour started in Cardiff, Wales, over the weekend, and I saw a video of it. It looked freaking amazing. I mean, the crowd and all that. But this, as you know, Robby, I am a huge set list nerd.
You are.
And some of this is there's a great it's like setlist dot I think it's like setlist.
FM.
Yes. It's amazing because I've actually gone back and like seen like the Pink Floyd concerts I went to at the Silverdome in '94. I was like, oh, I mean, I knew they played the whole Dark Side of the Moon the second night, first time since the 70s. But like the first night, going back through the set list and everything, and like again, all these old set lists. It's fantastic website, and they are constantly updating like on the moment. So I watched that video. I went to the set list website, saw the set list. It was pretty freaking great. They didn't play She's Electric. I was a little disappointed by that. It's one of my favorite songs by Oasis, but it was a pretty great set list. And by the way, during these concerts, like Liam Gallagher, everybody's mad at him because he asked the crowd if the show was worth the 40,000 pounds you paid for the ticket, which is pretty funny. And people are really mad at him because the tickets are apparently absurdly expensive. And if you want to see them, by the way, they are coming to Chicago for 2 nights. I think like LA, it's a very limited. Hopefully they'll add dates.
You going?
Well, if they came to Nissan, I would try to go, even though those tickets would be more ridiculous than Coldplay, which is still insanely expensive, by the way. But this is the thing. If you're a band that's going to do the 2-night thing, which Metallica did here, by the way, in the same place, you can't have the same exact freaking set list. Am I crazy here?
I agree.
The second night I looked at it, I'm like, it's the exact same. I think one song was in a different spot. Other than it was the exact same set list. Look, if you're those fans, you're excited to see them and all that. But if I was a fan who paid to go to both, the reason I'm going the second night is because I know I'm going to hear some songs that I didn't hear the first night. And they played the same songs. Oasis, you have other songs. You can't do that. You can't put together this, again, Metallica here, first night. They play all this stuff, and we lucked out going to the first night because they play all this stuff from Master of Puppets, which I like is my favorite album. And then the second night, they did a bunch of stuff from Ride the Lightning. It was a very different show and different songs from the other albums. That's exactly what you do. You mix it up if you're going to be at the same place so that if people go to both, they get two different shows. You guys aren't, I mean, I like Oasis. You're good. You're not good enough to just play the same songs 2 nights in a row, charge that kind of money, and be like, okay, everybody, have a good night.
Playing Wonderwall all night.
I mean, Wonderwall is like yes. I mean, it's a encore both nights, as you would think, Champagne Supernova, Wonderwall, But like they have other good songs. They have a lot of good songs. Like play something different. That to me is absolutely inexcusable. And kind of makes me less want to go. I know this though. If they were to play here 2 nights or whatever, anywhere nearby, I know I'm only going to one at least.
It's true. Who would never do that?
You're costing yourself if you're doing this as Oasis.
You know who would never do that to their fans?
Creed.
Scott Stapp, Creed. They would never go back-to-back nights and have the same exact set list. They're too good for that. They would not do that to their fans.
Is their set list like 19 different versions of "With Eyes Wide Open Under"?
I don't know, because we still gotta find a way to get to a Creed concert as a show.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what their set list looks like because I've never been to a Creed concert.
We had a chance. We had a chance, right?
I think we had 2 chances.
Yeah, well, we blew it.
Didn't go.
Hopefully, we blew it because they'll never play live again.
See, what if they have completely different set lists back-to-back night?
Right.
I feel like you would respect that.
Yeah, like
you would respect that as a music fan that we know you are.
Yeah, different shades of poo. It's still poo. Okay.
Rexrode.
And again, you're getting me into ripping Creed. I don't want to do it anymore. I've done it enough.
I didn't tell you had to rip them.
Well, you bring them up and you know what's going to happen.
I just threw it out there that I don't think they disrespect their fans like that. That's all I'd say.
That's true. They respect their fans.
Have the Coldplay
play some different songs that sound better than that, please. Try something different.
Have the Coldplay tickets gone down? We talked about the Coldplay concert coming to Nashville and how the tickets are apparently ungodly expensive.
2 weeks away. No. I mean, thank you, Ricky, on the YouTube chat. Creed sucks. Ricky said it, not me. See? No, in fact, I'll do this in real time. It's insane because
I'm looking now. The cheapest tickets together, you can find 2 tickets together on StubHub for $447 a piece. $447
a piece?
The cheapest ones a piece.
It's insane
to get to Coldplay.
Coldplay, my goodness.
Well, no, I mean, yeah. Wait, were you not here when I ranted that day about that?
I don't think so.
I mean, like, it makes no sense. And somehow Rexrode kid number 3 and her friends are just really into going to see Coldplay. Really? You're that into going to see Coldplay? You're 14. Like they were good. I like Coldplay. They're fine. But like, why is this so important? But apparently the whole world has to go see Coldplay.
Pretty much everything in the lower bowl for Coldplay is like $1,000 at least. That's insane to me.
Unfreaking believable, man. Yeah, JH says, dude, I paid way too much money for Coldplay tickets. I'll be at Nissan, but they better play forever for how much I paid.
Is there an opener?
I
hope not. I hope they get out there for 5 hours.
Well,
I
hope
someone Led Zeppelin's opening for these prices.
Either that or somebody legit as an opener. Oasis needs to open for Coldplay, then you might be all right.
See, there you go. Derek says, I paid $700 each for my floor seats for Oasis Chicago. Worth it. But okay, that's cool, Derek. I hope you just go one night, though. I mean, I'm sure it's a great show. So it's not like, if it's a great show and you get the exact same show the next night, I guess there's worse things. But, I mean, no variance at all. And again, maybe I'm overreacting and these guys are going to now get out there a little bit and mix in some more songs. But that's a very disappointing start.
I don't think there's ever a circumstance where I would go to the same concert back-to-back nights, even if they changed up the whole thing. I don't think I'd do it.
Yeah, I mean, like Katie and I every year go to, and it's just coming up this weekend. Dave Matthews and Indy back-to-back nights, absolutely.
Well, the set list will be. He won't know back-to-back songs.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done that with My Morning Jacket.
There you go.
3 nights in a row, all different
3
set
nights.
lists. Oh yeah.
3 nights of My Morning Jacket.
That's pretty good.
I need to get into My Morning Jacket.
6-1.
I heard a song the other day. It sounded pretty good.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things Titans with him. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Corey Curtis from News 2, brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. Corey, good morning. How are you?
I am adequate, sir. How are you?
Adequate. That's not outstanding. That's not delightful, but it is adequate.
Well, I'm truthful as well.
That's good. It's good. Corey, we were having a Titans discussion, as you know, 2 weeks away from camp, so we're getting there in terms of the summer calendar here. Denard Wilson heading into year 2. Obviously, there was a ton of excitement when they made that hire. You look at his background, his path to get here; it's very impressive. You know, you look at the roster last year, and it's not great on the defensive side of the ball. The yardage they gave up actually wasn't that bad at the end of last year, but if you watch the Titans play, you know that defensively they need some help heading into this year. So I got 2 questions for you on the Denard Wilson front. Number one, how are you feeling about Denard Wilson as DC heading into year 2? And secondarily to that, how do you feel about the tools that Denard Wilson has at his disposal in year 2 as defensive coordinator?
Well, I think, year one's got to be a learning experience for anyone who's in a job for the very first time. And, like you said, there are certain things they did well. But both from his perspective and from a player perspective, they got to make more plays. I mean, they just didn't make enough plays that impacted the game. I'm talking about sacks and turnovers and all those types of things. And, fairly you'll say, well, who did they have to make those plays? When 2 of your best defenders are 300 pounds, you're not going to generally get a lot of dynamic, plays unless you've got Aaron Donald and he's retired. And also, the 2 corners you paid through the nose for, didn't show up. They were hurt or one thing or another. I think he had a number of things go against him, but I think, he's also got to find a way to make more plays. I know I'm sure they're emphasizing the culture of getting the ball out and, the peanut punch and just constantly trying to get the ball out because they got to get the ball out. They've got to get to the quarterback. We always talk about Jeffrey Simmons. He's got to finish more plays. I know he's lost weight, and that's probably what his hope is that he's that half step quicker, even to finish the sack. Because he's been about a 4.5, 5.5 sack guy for them. Whether that be because of injury or not, they need him to be a 9 to 12 sack guy. I mean, that's what they're paying for, and so that's what they need him to be. They need Tavondre Sweat to step up. And I don't know what they're going to get from the edge. I mean, I'd be surprised if any of those guys winds up with more than 6 or 7. So, they need somebody to have a career year out there. That's for sure.
9 to 12. I mean, he is a defensive tackle. That seems a little
well, what
lofty.
does Chris Jones do?
Well, sure, but has Jeff Simmons ever been? But I guess. But as you know, Corey, there are different kinds of great players inside, right? I guess I've never thought of him quite as a guy that would get to that number.
There was one of his early seasons. He was on a 5 sack and 6 game pace to start the year before he got hurt. And he's been that kind of guy. And I understand he gets double teamed a lot, but there are 17 games now. And for him to come up with a sack every other game, I don't think, for the amount of money he's making and for the player that he's drafted to be, and everybody said he was a top 10 pick before the injury. I don't think asking 9 sacks from him is a huge ask. He's got the ability, he's got the talent, and like I said, that's what he's getting paid to do. He's not getting paid $20+ million a year to stop the run. Okay, you can find guys to do that.
Yeah, no, he definitely. Well, he absolutely has to have a big hand in pass rush being better, but at least by affecting and pushing the pocket, right? I mean, without question. Let me ask you this: take money out of it, because one of them makes a lot more than the other. So, but if you just take money out of it, if you're the Titans and you could choose one of those two guys, Simmons or Sweat, to make a huge jump this year, who would it be from last year, obviously?
Well, I mean, you're going from year to one to year two. You'd hope it would be Sweat. I mean, because at this point, you kind of know what Jeffrey Simmons is. I mean, what are we? It was 2016 draft or 2019 draft.
19.
So yeah. So we're 6 years in. So we know what Jeffrey Simmons is. Like I said,
but 2021 Jeffrey Simmons is as unrealistic as that may be. It's still a lot different than 2024 Jeffrey Simmons, right?
Oh, absolutely. But we're 3 years removed now. So, and also, fairly to Jeff, he had better personnel around him back then. And so, we'll see if these guys can, and maybe Tavondre can help him more out. But, if you're saying who's going to make a bigger jump, Tavondre Sweat had 1 sack last year. So if he gets 2, he doubled his total.
Corey, on the Titans front, obviously, I mean, we're going to spend so much time over the next few months and frankly, few years talking about Cam Ward. We know, setting that aside, that it is the number one storyline heading into camp. But beyond Ward, what intrigues you the most? What are you most interested to see / learn about this team heading into camp?
Well, I mean, there's a lot, but I think, the number one thing, because, you guys have been here a long time, I've been here a long time. Most years, no matter what the Titans were, they had a pretty good offensive line. It's always been the skill positions that seem to have been lacking most of the time. And they've done a lot to fix the offensive line. Is this the year, that they in fact get it fixed? Because if they can get it fixed, they're going to be a lot more competitive football team. I don't know how many wins that comes out to be, but if you can actually protect the quarterback, if you can actually run the football when you need a yard and get it, and if you can not commit, self-inflicted wounds with penalties up front, you can be a lot better football team. So that is one for sure for me. And then the other is, the young receivers. Are any of these guys going to step up and be a guy for the team? Because I've been here for almost 25 years, and this team's been looking for receivers, virtually as long as I can remember, and the one they found, they traded away.
Yep.
On that offensive line, Corey, we were talking earlier about, as we get into close to preseason games here, less and less are most teams playing many guys, but I would make the case that giving that offensive line actual real football reps, maybe more than some, might actually have value this year. What do you think about that? And do you think Brian Callahan may look at it that way too?
Yes and no. You're going to have trouble though, because your right guard is aged, and so I'm sure he'll play some, but not a lot. And then your center's coming off of an Achilles injury, so how much will he be ready for the preseason? I mean, they're going to need to play together some, but I just don't know how much all 5 get on the field because of age and recovery. But your other 3, can certainly be out there and can certainly work. Especially that left side, with the new left tackle. I hate to say I don't worry much about the big guy on the right side. I think he'll be fine. But they do need time together. They do need full speed time together. I just don't know that they're going to be able to get quite as much if those guys were a few years younger and healthier that they would get.
So, Corey, on the Femi Oladejo front, you're talking about a second-round pick who, as we know and we've documented with you, just started playing edge rusher his last year in college. So I think because of that, there is a pretty widespread expectation that it's going to take him a while at the NFL level and that it's going to be more of a project. So, number one, do you buy into that? Is that fair for a second-round pick where basically there's not a whole lot of expectation at all that he's going to help you all that much this year based on his college path to get to this point at that position?
Well, isn't that the same switch that Micah Parsons made?
Yeah.
Let's just make the same expectation. He's the next Micah Parsons.
There we go.
No.
You heard it here first.
Okay.
I mean, look, he's an impressive guy to talk to. He's an impressive looking athlete, but he doesn't have a whole lot of snaps out there. But they need him to play. I mean, they just don't have enough out there. They need him to play, and we'll see if he's got bend. We'll see if he can push the pocket. He's going to have to get better as the year gets on. But I don't think it's fair to have huge expectations. And when I say it's fair, I don't think you're being fair to yourself, okay, as a fan. If you're like, oh, well, if things work out for Femi, he could have 8 to 12 sacks for us. Like if he has more than 5 sacks this year, that would just be unbelievable. If he had 3 to 5 this year, I would call it a success.
So I think wait, I just lost my question. You guys are messing me up with all this ripping the Beatles. They're ripping the Beatles on the chat, Corey, like during this segment, and it's really it's starting to piss me off. Please tell me that you understand. I don't know. Like someone is actually saying, how could you like the Beatles but not System of a Down?
Let the record show I didn't say that.
No, Robbie's saying Blink-182 is better than the Beatles. I mean, can you help me out here? I'm sorry, but we got to go off time. Can you help me out here, please? This is absolutely, this is just derailing my morning.
Isn't the guy from Blink-182 who started up the UFO project?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you what they do off the field, Corey. I just know about their music.
The UFO project?
That's all I know about Blink-182 is like the lead singer or the bass player started up like to the Stars project, which investigates UFOs all over the world.
Interesting. But what about the Beatles?
Rexrode may like them more.
I need your help.
Well, what about the Beatles? I mean, like one of the 5 top rock bands of all time, right?
I mean, I think you're doing them a disservice saying they're one of the top 5.
Yeah, probably top 2, top 3. I mean. Look,
Creed 1,
yeah,
Blink-182.
Yeah,
2,
well, I mean,
Beatles
it's going to depend.
Okay.
Some people are going to say it's the Rolling Stones, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a fair debate to have. No, I like the Stones better than the Beatles. Okay, that's a fair debate to have.
Yeah, I mean, but also when they came in, it's also when you came in. I mean, the Beatles changed the world.
Yes.
All right.
And music.
They changed the world. Blink-182. Now, if they do discover alien life, they will change the world. But their music has not changed the world.
Thank you, Corey.
And so you have
That's
to.
just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, my opinion does change the world. Okay, I could make some big ones here, but I'll hold back.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Great stuff. We're right around the corner from training camp. We appreciate, even though you're just feeling adequate today, that you took time to join us.
I am. By the way, you guys are talking Nashville SC at 8:30, right?
We are.
I tell you what, I know not everybody's a soccer person, but this team's an absolute wagon right now, and they're fun to watch. They're more talented. They're faster. BJ Callahan's a heck of a coach, and their win Saturday night was as good of a win as you will ever see on the pitch. And people need to take the time to appreciate it a little bit. You will have a wonderful time at the game. And I'm not just saying this to advocate for them. I'm just saying you're missing a possible championship team if you don't go watch.
There we go. You heard it from Corey Curtis. We will be getting into Nashville SC coming up at 8:30. Corey, great stuff, brother. Appreciate you being with us. Later. Corey Curtis from News 2, our guest, joins us every Monday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. Brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. We'll react to what Corey had to say coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Speaking of bands, I got some tickets to give away to Coheed and Cambria at Ascend Amphitheater Wednesday, September the 3rd. Be caller 5-615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. I mean, Rexrode was just left flummoxed in our last segment there. Just totally forgot his question.
I had a good football question for Corey, and I've still forgotten it because now I just have these people with the Beatles shade. I mean, I just basically let you say what you're going to say about the Beatles. That's fine. But people who actually believe that, I mean, like, we need drug testing. We need more drug testing in society.
I believe it. I do.
Yeah, you don't know anything about the Beatles. You've listened to like 8 songs.
That's all I needed.
Well,
not very good.
But that's not. Abbey Road is the greatest rock album ever
Long
made.
fuse.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, people are ripping on My Morning Jacket in there too. Get after me. Get after
really,
him.
everybody's musical taste is under attack on the YouTube chat right now.
But I mean, seriously, like the actual, I think this quote is serious. You don't like System of a Down, but you like the Beatles. Someone actually said that, and I think was serious. Wow.
Oh boy.
How do you not love System of a Down?
Hey, apparently whoever that person is got in Chicago for System of a Down for $100.
Yeah, we're talking about
the rate that concerts are going right now. $100, pretty good.
Yeah, and told us, but they did it with the acronym SOAD.
Yeah, I had no clue who
I saw SOAD for 100. Well, who the hell is SO? Duh, System of a Down.
You ever seen them live?
Good God, no.
Guess not.
No.
You got a Beastie Boys shirt on today. Are they better than the Beatles?
No, but I do love the Beastie Boys. And I'm very sad that I never saw the Beastie Boys live. I blew it, man.
A lot of reaction to the Femi Oladejo part of this. You know, it is interesting because the moment they made that pick, I think a lot of people said, okay, well, he just started playing edge rusher. And physically, you look at him and you look at his size and you think, okay, well, that guy, from a physical specimen standpoint, got a chance to end up being a pretty good player in the NFL. Question is, how quickly can he get there? From the Titans timeline, is it crucial that Femi Oladejo comes in this year and is an absolute stud at edge rusher? Well, obviously it would help this year's team, but from where they're at as a franchise, if it takes 3 years for Femi Oladejo to be a great player, then you'll probably take that if you're the Titans, just as long as he ends up becoming a great player. But he is a second-round pick. Like, a second-round pick, when you take somebody in the second round, you need them to come in and help you immediately. Like, it's just the name of the game in the NFL. So, look, he's going to have to play. Corey is right. Look at their roster right now. Oladejo is going to have to play. Now, I don't know that he's necessarily going to have to start, but he's going to have to play pretty significantly for that defense. I am really interested to see what he does. Corey said there, 3 to 5 sacks this year. He would consider that a success.
But he wants 12 out of Jeff.
I did hear that. If he wants anything, if Oladejo gets anything more than that, then he would say that that's, unbelievable at that point. Do you agree with that? Is that what your expectation is for Oladejo? What's fair, what's unfair when it comes to him, given everything we know about his background and heading into a team that right now around him doesn't have a whole lot of pieces on that defense?
That sounds about right. See, like, first of all, the sack numbers obviously you can have a good sack total and it can kind of be empty calories, especially inside. It's very easy for a defensive tackle, for an interior defensive lineman, to me, to have a 2-sack year that is way better than someone else's 8-sack year at that. Like, it doesn't tell you that much. But on the edge, I mean, that number matters more. And because obviously your primary job is getting to the quarterback. And I would say that probably that's about right. Like, 5 would be a good start, just if you're just going to go with that sack number. But again, I mean, is he able to play in all situations? How often is he out there? How often is he affecting quarterbacks? Pressure rate, pass rush win rate, stuff like that. Those things tell you more. So just the sack number of 5, yeah, I mean, I think that if he could get that, and it's in tandem with some level of, consistent getting into the backfield and consistent making a difference. And again, being part of an improved run defense, then that's great.
Yeah, I would agree. Like the problem with this year's team is they really need him to come in and be really good from the jump. Because if he's not, unless we see something that we just haven't seen from Draymond Jones or go up and down their list of edge rushers out there. Unless we see something that we have just not seen from any of these guys before, it's hard to imagine them being good enough getting after the passer unless he comes in and is just really good right from the jump. But again, I'm with people who look at his background and the fact that he just started playing that position and view it more as a project pick. But then I think that gets into, all right, is that what the Titans should have done there? Like, are you taking that guy in the second round where they took him if you feel like he's more of a project pick? And some of this is going to have to do with some of the other edge rushers that went in his vicinity in the draft, right? Like,
sure,
how good does Landon Jackson end up being in his first year? Because I know a lot of people were upset. A lot of Titans fans were upset when Jackson was still on the board and they didn't take him and they went Oladejo. How good's he in his first year? How good are some of the other edge rushers that went right in that same vicinity compared to Oladejo in terms of how long it takes him to get going? That's going to be something we monitor as well.
Yeah. And look, I do feel like, look, if a guy plays his whole rookie year, you have a pretty good idea of what that player is. But this player is supposed to have a big learning curve. This player is supposed to take a little while, So that's kind of, I guess, the hard part about someone like him, a project. I mean, I guess there's no better way to get better than to play games, but still, like a project like him, you'd almost rather see a guy like that go somewhere where they at least have some edges. So you can just be the third or fourth guy, just be like, yeah, weave him in, see what he can do. I mean, I just feel like necessity is going to dictate a lot of work for this guy. And if he is as raw as his lack of experience suggests, and they could make for some premature judgment.
Yeah, I mean, what I really want to see from Oladejo, it's not the same as Cam Ward because Cam Ward played a lot more at his position, and it's just different with quarterback. But I would love to see by the end of the year, you look at Oladejo on the edge, and he's starting to figure it out, and you come away from the end of this season thinking to yourself that in 2026 he's got a chance to be a really, really good player for you. Like that would be good to see. Like, Brian on the YouTube chat, and I understand this, as if you're drafting a guy with a second round pick, you need more production than 3 or 5 sacks. It's a letdown. Otherwise, you shouldn't have drafted a project edge rusher with a second round pick. I understand that thought process. I do. I also think like where you're at as an organization matters in this discussion too. And if it's 2021 and the Titans are doing that when they're in go for it mode, I got more of a problem with that than I do right now when they're the worst team in the NFL and they're trying to build something. I think there's a difference between those two things.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just this is probably not going to be a good team, and this is clearly a big swing in terms of upside, but you're going to have to be a little bit patient. I'm reading Brugler right now. I know we did this after the draft, but he says, he offers pass rush upsides. He continues to evolve his attack plan, but he has the disruptive qualities, his power and effort to see immediate NFL snaps, 3-down potential. And then, of course, the coachability was a thing that will be enough to reach a sin will be key that was through the process, but there was some stuff about that. I mean, basically at this point through the spring, it sounds like from that perspective, it's been pretty good out there.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Nick Frazier will be with us coming up next. We will get into Nashville SC, who is red hot with a big win over the weekend, as you heard Corey Curtis discuss. And they are unbeaten in 14 straight. We'll get Nick Frazier's thoughts on Nashville SC coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you, joined by our man, Nick Frazier, who, by the way, you will hear coming up here at 9 o'clock for a couple hours with Big Joe Dubin as well. So,
hello.
A lot of Nick Frazier day here on the show. Nick Frazier, how we doing? What's going on?
We're great. Yesterday I fell down a flight of steps helping my buddy Trey move out of his apartment, but we're good. We're here.
Did you bounce back up or did you just kind of take a minute?
It took me a minute.
Okay.
I think I've reached that age at the ripe age of 26. It's going to take me a minute.
Yeah.
Rexrode's looking at you just in sheer terror over there.
I'm glad you're okay. Before we get started, are the Beatles good?
Yeah, why not?
Thank you.
Hey,
everybody else shut up, including
and
you, Big Joe.
In high school, my English teacher, Mr. Purrier, we actually took a whole semester to learn about the Beatles. It was a history class about the Beatles.
Really? This
might be the freaking teacher of the year in this country. Holy crap.
I'll get you his
got a
number.
story for everything.
Mr. Purrier. Matt
Shout out to Mr. Purrier. That is absolutely worthwhile for the kids.
No
Good
relation to Spurrier.
No Spurrier.
So Nashville SC gets another win against Philadelphia over the weekend. 1-0 the final score. Hani Mukhtar the game winner. And that is 14 in a row where they are unbeaten. And they're number 2 in the conference now. They're 1 point behind Cincinnati. So what do you make of the run that they're on? And as you watch them play, as you watch the way that they're coming together, how do you view kind of their chances to make a real run here moving forward?
I think it's a true case where they can not only just go for the MLS Cup, they can also win the U.S. Open Cup and maybe even the Supporters Shield. Supporters Shield's like the President's Trophy in hockey, best record. They could have the huge opportunity, and they should possibly capitalize on it, on getting a domestic treble, winning 3 trophies. Some people look at the Supporters Shield as not a real trophy. I'll count it just for the sake of Nashville having the just hunger to win a championship, a major championship. So, yeah, Nashville has a true case of winning 3 trophies this season. As for the evolution of the way they've played from last season to this season, BJ Callahan has a interesting formation where he has 4 midfielders, 4 defenders, 2 midfielders, 2 attacking midfielders, and then an offset striker set where Sam Surge is up top as the 9 and Hani Mukhtar kind of drifts behind him as the 10, playing that creator role. I think the way BJ Callahan is instilled in this team, everyone attacks, everyone defends. That's what you really need if you want to be a top 4 team in the MLS every single year. I mean, if you guys watched the match this past Saturday, Hani Mukhtar had a great quote after the game saying that, even we were 10 men down, we still had to continue to attack, because if you want to be a good team in the MLS, you have to continue to attack. And I think if you saw this team under Gary Smith last season, if they're in the same situation, it would have ended in maybe a 0-0 draw or possibly a 1-0 loss. So that for Nashville to go out there and say, you know what, we're going to go out there 10 men down. It doesn't matter. We're going to possess the ball, cycle it around, wear them down, and get a goal.
Well, that was going to be my question on coaching. First of all, I didn't realize until earlier in the show, BJ Callahan, actually, he is Brian Callahan. So we have two of the 3 teams and pro teams in Nashville are coached by Brian Callahan.
That's true.
Which is very interesting. But, personally, I'm a big fan of Gary Smith personally, but it seems to be, is that basically the way to describe the difference, that Callahan just has a more aggressive style, more aggressive system that suits the personnel better?
Yes, it does. And I'm not saying, Gary Smith didn't do a great job with Nashville. I think he helped bring this team to another level. When Gary Smith was coaching, he used a 3 at the back formation, where if you have 3 center backs, you're leaving your flanks open for the most part defensively. You're allowing, I guess, more opportunities for the opposing team to attack. And that takes more stamina out of your guys that are running up and down the flanks of the pitch, which is not really what you want with the style that this roster's, I guess, constructed. Now, when BJ Callahan came in this past offseason, I think it was great. One, because he had a full offseason to really build a good rapport with the younger players. They brought in Eddie Tagseth. Patrick Yazbak was midway through last season. Those 2 guys are the core pillar midfielders for Nashville. And it's honestly been a blessing in disguise for Nashville when it comes to looking at Eddie Tagseth, because initially in BJ Callahan's not weird formation, it's technically a 4-2-3-1. We have 3 attacking midfielders. They put Eddie Tagseth out on the right attacking midfielder role. And when, Nashville was kind of shorthanded at midfield, they needed somebody to fill in that position. They put Eddie Tagseth in there, and he's been some people call him the Norwegian nuisance, because every single ball that's in the area, he's going after. I think he leads the league, or leads Nashville for sure, with the most miles covered in a match. So this guy seems to never have any stop to his game, which is great. Just really hoping for the longevity purpose of health for this team, because that's really what's going to get them if it does. They've already shown they can overcome that for a little bit, but the month of July is pretty vital for them if they want to stay in the top 6.
So Sam Surridge is currently the favorite to win the Golden Boot for most goals in the league. He's got him at number 1, Messi at number 2. So number 1, got to feel good for him to look at that right now. What do you make? Is it as simple as the coaching change for him? Is it a combination of the coaching change and him being more comfortable in his surrounding? What do you think has led to the offensive explosion from him this year?
I think it's the addition of Andy Nahar at right back, the Honduran right back that they've brought in. You know, a lot of people, I guess, discredit defensive help when it comes to using him in offensive attack. But going to Sam Surridge with all that, there have been 7 assists from Andy Nahar, and I believe 3 or 4 of them have led to Sam Surridge scoring a goal. So having that addition out of the back with Andy Nahar has been great. As for Sam Surridge, when it comes to possessing the ball, turning his back to a defender, I think it's coming down to the chemistry between him and Hani with this attacking style that I've already spoke about in this segment, is that you have BJ Callahan's system that's starting to wear off on Sam Surridge, and it's opening up space where if, say, for instance, Joe and I are like bumper to bumper, shoulder to shoulder in the attacking third, Sam Surridge is really good at creating separation off the ball. So say if Andy Nahar puts a diagonal ping up in the air and it's about a 30-yard ball, Sam Surridge is bumper to bumper with Joe, and as soon as that ball is left, he creates that separation, and then his first touch is what's vital at that point. And he's done a really good job from this offseason up to now, getting his first touch in depth, ready to go, and having the ability to have, let's say, Hani Mukhtar and or Johnny Perez, who's been one of those players that has been, I guess, a role player in years past. Now, this season with Gold Cup and all the international stuff going on, Jacob Schaffelberg has been with Team Canada. So Johnny Perez has been inputted into that attacking right midfielder role, and he's been great servicing Sam Surridge as well. And I just think that chemistry is starting to build not only for the top squad, but squad B, squad C, squad D. Anybody you put out on the field for Nashville, they can somehow get the job done, which is incredible.
You're talking about this with great enthusiasm, which makes sense because Big Joe's not going to let you talk about it. Big Joe's going to make you rank the top 10 Magnum PI shows this week. I hope you've been doing your homework on that. I'm glad we're giving you this outlet to. This is fantastic information. So real quick on Mukhtar, then.
Sure.
Is Mukhtar, I guess, a little bit more of a facilitator? Is it also a more comfortable role for him? Because obviously he had been carrying this team offensively a year ago.
I'd say this year has been a turning point in Hani's career. Obviously, still being in his 20s, late 20s. Sam Surridge came in last season as a force to be reckoned with. Now, this was Hani's team. Now, in my opinion, I think it's still Hani's team, but not to the same degree as it was a few years back. There was a big discrepancy early on in the season when Hani Mukhtar was missing penalty kicks. Yes, he did make the penalty kick this past weekend, but early on in the season, there was a discrepancy of where he kept missing penalty kicks. It was either Sam Surridge or Hani Mukhtar that was going to take it. And as of late, after I'd say match day 3, match day 4, maybe a little later on than that, Sam Surridge has been the go-to guy taking the penalty kicks. And so from there on out, it's kind of taken, in my opinion, a lot more pressure off of Hani Mukhtar's shoulders to allow him to really focus on his own game of his first touch, the way he sees the spacing in between the attacking third. BJ Callahan just expresses to all the players finding those little small pockets in between the back line and the midfield. And when you can do that with a guy like Hani Mukhtar, who's so explosive once he gets the ball to his feet and finding those outlet passes left and right of the flanks, because, I mean, to me, the key point every single game for Nashville is if their 2 midfielders can hold down the midfield and basically get possession, pass it up to Hani, and Hani can facilitate it to the left and right flanks, then honestly, in my opinion, Nashville have won the game already, possessively.
Well, it's nice to be talking about a team around here that's doing some winning.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we talked about that.
Winning Brian Callahan.
Wow. There's a lot of winning going on from Nashville SC. It's good stuff.
Thank
Fraser,
you.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your information. We'll be listening at 9 o'clock.
Thank
you for coming in early. We appreciate it.
Don't take it easy on Big Joe.
Oh,
all week. Don't take it easy on him.
I won't. You know what? I'm glad you guys had me on, because if you want to know more about Nashville SC, Talking Calcio podcast on the Nashville Sports Network.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Check it out. Nick Fraser, our guest. We'll take your thoughts on what Fraser had to say. Wrap up the show as well. Coming up next, 737-1025 is our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. This fall, live at Pinnacle at Nashville Yards, Tim McGraw will perform at Trinitix's Rock the Cradle. This event sure to be a great time, celebrating a great cause. Proceeds from the event will support newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. You can get your tickets at rockthecradlenashville.org. Also, this Wednesday, come on out to Brewhouse South in Cool Springs and meet Nashville native and two-time IndyCar champion Joseph Newgarden from 5:30 to 7. Also, Big Joe will be on site for a special broadcast of Chasing Checkers from 6 to 7 o'clock. Get on out to Brewhouse South this Wednesday. Meet Joseph Newgarden and sign up to win tickets to the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix as well. Appreciate Nick Frazier for being with us in the last segment. Nashville SC doing a lot of winning right now. They're number 2 in the conference, 1 point behind Cincinnati. And as I said, nice to be talking about a winning team around here. Haven't had a whole lot of that recently, so keep it up, Nashville SC.
I'm confident that Brian Callahan will be coaching a Nashville football team in 2026.
Nice. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Very well done. Me too.
I darn
share
near
that confidence.
guarantee it.
I share that confidence.
That was great info from
the odds are
Nick
in the
Frazier.
favor.
Yeah. Hopefully the 2 Brian Callahan. I mean, how has this never come up? Are we breaking this news today? Like, has anybody ever talked about this?
Oh, I'm sure it was
You're
discussed.
a genius for figuring this out today.
I'm sure it was discussed when he was first.
Are you sure though? Are you sure? Sure. Maybe not. Maybe this is breaking news on this show that we broke. I mean, there's 2 freaking Brian Callahans coaching pro teams in one city.
One's got a G in there, so it's it's a little different.
But you don't say it differently,
you don't say
right?
it. Right, yeah. So a lot of Brian Callahans walking around here.
Pretty amazing.
Is there a Brian Callahan in the Predators organization? I don't know of one.
That's good. That's a good point.
Maybe they're gonna go find one.
Is there any way that we can?
There used to be a Ryan Callahan that played in the NHL.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring him in. Close enough.
Maybe someday the Milwaukee Admirals can be coached by a Brian Callahan, the favorite team of this station, the Milwaukee Admirals. Great stuff from Nick Frazier. Really interesting stuff. And Sam Surridge, pretty awesome.
Golden Boot.
Hani Mukhtar, like you said, carried this team for a while, and you got those 2 guys together doing some pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. Avansies on YouTube says, yeah, it was talked about when he was hired. Joe's just a boomer.
Avansies, is that how you say that? Avansies?
I don't know. That's how I'm reading it.
Or Avansies. I'm about sick of your crap today. So that'll be enough. Ripping the Beatles. And by the way, people on the text line are like, oh, yeah, if you're younger than 75. Well, my 21-year-old son listens to the Beatles probably more than any other band. So that's good parenting, and that's good taste in music. Thank you.
There you go. Let's see.
Now, my 17-year-old would probably rather, listen to Nails on a Chalkboard than the Beatles. So it's we all have our things.
We do. We do. Alex says last year both NSC and the Titans had a Brian Callahan and a Tyler Boyd. I do remember that.
Oh, wow.
What are the odds?
Okay, so we didn't break news. That is crazy. I guess I was just
Tyler
oblivious to the
Boyd,
whole
come
conversation. Yeah. But Tyler Boyd with the Titans.
Has he landed a job yet?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Talk about picking somebody up.
Nope.
Just
they keep talking about he
totally
should
cash.
Sign with Pittsburgh.
Like
that's all the speculation.
Is that right?
Steelers, yeah.
But it's like, I from what I could tell, when you think about that receiving core and the opportunity that should have been there, just someone who's totally washed, which is kind of crazy. And also crazy that Brian Callahan, the American football version, had just been with him. So he, I think it must have been a little bit of a falling off a cliff that no one saw coming.
I mean, he did.
That's why he's not.
He even signed late with the Titans, though, too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He went from 67 catches in 2023 in Cincinnati for 667 yards and a couple of touchdowns, which again, by the way, was a drop from what he was doing before that.
Fine.
But that's fine. He had 39 for 390 last year. No touchdowns.
And honestly,
he averaged 3 a catch. Is that right?
No,
that's not right.
No.
He averaged 10 a catch.
Yeah.
What's the average of 3 that I'm looking at on the stat? I need to figure that out.
I don't know.
The 3 catches per
I was
game.
going to say
Okay.
that would be a hell of an average.
3 yards a catch. I'm catching each pass 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
I immediately fell on that bubble screen every time.
3 yards a catch.
But honestly, those numbers that you just said for Tyler Boyd, that sounds higher than I remember last year.
He averaged 3 yards for rushing last year.
Oh, okay. There
1 carry for 3 yards.
Nice.
There you go. 3 yards. I was wondering where that 3 came from. I was like, 3 yards.
He runs a 6.440 right now. But you can post him up right off the line and lateral it to him.
Oh, boy.
Good stuff.
I will be interested to see if he ends up anywhere at any point.
Yeah, I'll be surprised. Just because, it just didn't. Again, you're talking about a place with plenty of opportunity a year ago.
One texter says, who had more catches, the MLS or NFL? Tyler Boyd. Which guy caught the ball more last year?
I mean, if you're doing a throw in, you sometimes like you'll catch it.
That's true.
You know, like the ref will give you the you catch
just
that.
catch it from the official.
I don't know if he did a lot of throw-ins.
Does that count?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good question.
you know, I mentioned earlier in the show, they need like another, like what are the most famous one stop it didn't work out, second stop it did in Titans history? I mean, it's hard to get better than Tannehill, right? Like Tannehill in Miami obviously did not work out to the degree in which they hoped. And then he came here and for a few years was really, really good. I mentioned Vanden Bosch earlier, doing absolutely nothing in Arizona. And then the first year he shows up here, he gets 12 and a half sacks for the Titans.
That's crazy.
Delaney Walker. Like those are some pretty famous examples, but they need another one of those from somebody. I have no idea who that would be this year. Like, I don't know, Draymond Jones. Would he be the candidate for that this year? But they need somebody to come out of nowhere and really help them that we're just not expecting today.
Yeah, but more exciting. Yeah, maybe Draymond Jones could have a good year. I'll be surprised if there's any veteran who, you know, is that kind of a split. What they really, really need draft picks and young guys to, you know, start justifying the draft picks that were used on them. It's been a while since there's been many young guys on the Titans roster that were like, oh yeah, that made sense that they picked fill in the blank at fill in the blank spot.
Van Jefferson, come on down, baby.
There is Van
There's
Jefferson.
the breakout. That's what we're looking for.
I mean, if Bryce Oliver is making this team, is Van Jefferson making this team?
I mean, I don't think it should be a guarantee that Van Jefferson is making the team. I would probably lean yes, just based on the fact that he has played in this league for a while.
So you're out on Restrepo then.
I mean,
by my math, I don't think both of them are on this team.
I don't think both of them are on the team either.
Yeah. You're going to get, it's too late in the show to get the people this mad. But
yeah, you could get Restrepo to the practice squad, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you can get him there, you know, then it might be.
If he went undrafted, perhaps he wouldn't go taken.
Yeah, we'll
claimed,
see.
something.
Yeah. I mean, I could see, I think if he performs really well, that's where you're like, could you be exposed when you put him on waivers? Yeah. You know, to a team that's just really light at receiver. Can't imagine too many teams lighter than this team, but there are some light receiver rooms out there.
Van Jefferson in his career, 137 catches, 1,876 yards. He's doing it in one season this year. That's what they need.
Wait, say that again?
He had 100, and he's in his career. He's got 137 catches for 1,876 yards.
Okay. I guess I thought he had done a little bit more than that.
Nope.
Okay.
Not getting a whole lot of Van Jefferson.
A lot of disappointment today, mostly about people who don't realize the Beatles are the greatest band of all time.
That does it for us today. The Chase and Big Joe show with Big Joe and Nick Frazier coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.